Hello, and thanks for joining me today. I'm Priyanka Chaturvedi from AWS Managed Services team in Sydney, Australia. Today, we are going to talk about how you can efficiently scale your IT operations in the cloud using AWS tools. In this session, we'll cover why you need to think differently when it comes to cloud operations so that you can enjoy the ROIs early enough. And this is by leveraging cloud native capabilities that can drive automation so that you can set high IT standards. We are going to be designing some patterns that you can use to scale your IT functions. And this is all going to be followed by a demo. So stay tuned and let's get started. I've been working with AWS for a number of years now. And the AWS business has been operational for over 14 years. And during this time, we have worked with hundreds of enterprise customers. And one of the most important things that we have learned is, how you move into the cloud for its benefits, like, agility, elasticity, cost. You can innovate faster. What you don't want to do is move in with the old operating model into the new world. Let me give you an example of this. Most of the customers, in fact, I can say almost all customers that we speak to have a series of challenges associated with, complex systems and legacy processes. And what that translates into is a high percentage of the environment not having DR plans, a high percentage of the environment not having validated backups, number of workloads not being patched or having patching issues. And I'm talking 20-30% of the environment having these challenges. So you do not want to inherit these operational shortcomings onto the new world. Because if you're going to do that, you're going to inhibit your ability to extract value from the cloud. And then you will keep compounding on this legacy and the challenges associated with service management, which would mean that your skilled resources are going to be spending a lot more time doing undifferentiated tasks like, patching, backup, monitoring, rather than adding value to your business and spending extended hours troubleshooting your incidents. And all this is going to result to higher cost. And that's not the reason why you moved into the cloud in the first place. So now is the time to change. As you move into the cloud, one of your foundations of cloud success is going to be how you can think and operate differently. Today, we are going to look at a way of defining and designing best practice around service management, a model that is easy to adopt, and it would improve the resilience and reliability of your cloud platform. So the question is, where do I start? Well, what we have experienced with large enterprises is the diversity in how they do IT operations. Let me explain this better. I have worked in outsourcing prior to Amazon, and I understand that scenario where we say that, every application owner is different. Every business unit is different. What we end up doing is creating this model which looks at service management functions as a snowflake. But we know in a large technology domain, if you start treating service management functions being unique and different to app owners, to business units, you're going to end up with massive complex environments with manual processes. And what is this going to lead to? Well, a lot of governance issues, having no insight of how they are being performed, and service management issues. So it is important that when you are talking about IT operations at scale, you should remove diversity and manual processes. So think about standardization. And standardization does not mean one size fits all. Don't get me wrong. Standardization means finding those patterns and standards that would then allow you to automate using the right tools. Automation, as we know, is going to drive efficiency. It is going to allow you to attain higher compliance. It is going to provide you better insights through reporting. Now, there are many sides to IT operations, right? Patching, monitoring, DR activities. For the sake of this conversation today, we are going to be talking about patching. So at an organizational level, start thinking what your patching policy would be. And some of the considerations would be, what is the frequency of patching? Do you want to keep patching on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis? It depends. Cloud gives you a lot of flexibility to do things quickly through automation. And then, are you going to have some kind of a setup where between environments, dev, test, and production, you want to give, let's say, 5 business days gaps? Just an example, a thought. Or do you want to make patching an opt-in or an opt-out model for your organization? It all depends what business outcomes you're trying to achieve. And once you have defined your policy, we are going to take the right tools. In this case, we are going to be using AWS Systems Manager that can take up this plan, convert it into a pattern, and operationalize it. And this mechanism is going to give you higher patch compliance and will set your bar of compliance higher for you to achieve at. So let's look forward in terms of how AWS Managed Services, also known as AMS, does patching at scale. Now, AMS is built on the foundations of standards and automation. Don't get me wrong, you don't need to use AMS to do this. What I'm sharing is our view of the world, which we believe is best practice. You can do it yourself or you can use AMS to do it. So typically in a large enterprise, we would have hundreds of such AWS accounts. For the sake of this conversation, let's imagine one such AWS account which has hundreds of instances running in them. So where do you start? Well, start thinking about your organizational level patching policies. It could be based on OS types. It could be based on line of businesses. It could be even based on, environment types. But whatever you're planning, try to create a handful of patterns that can cover for 80% of your landscape. And we'll talk about what to do with the rest of the 20%, but you want to standardize and patternize it to cover 80% of your fleet. And once you have defined these plans, what you're going to do is you're going to scan your account and look for workloads and instances that fall into that bucket, categorizing them. And once we have identified them, we are going to apply a key value pair in the form of a tag. Now, tags makes things very easy to manage, maintain, change. So it makes it like a set and forget model. If there is a change in your business condition, if there is a critical CVE that has been released, you can quickly update the tags and get them patched. If you have a DR plan scheduled in your patching window, you want to opt out of it, it's all about updating the tags. So it gives you a very easy approach to managing the service management function of patching just through tags. And once you have done all this, what we are going to do is look at that automation aspect that needs to be wrapped around it, such that it accepts the plan, executes it at scale, and you sitting at your desk, you get emails notifying you of how your patching is progressing. And this is a very hands-off approach to patch management. So taking the same example forward, what I have done here is I have defined a patch plan called dev. Now I'm taking that approach that in my organization, I want to have patching policy defined based on environment types, dev, test, production. Now, when you're defining your patch policies, bear in mind what to patch, when to patch, which patches to apply. These are the 3 key components here. And in this case, I have given it a 5 hours of patching window, and I have given it a scheduled time of the 3rd Tuesday of the month starting at midnight. What I've also done is defined an offset period or a cutoff period. What it means is I'm saying 2 hours from the end of my patching cycle, do not start any new patches. This just allows me to, play safe, not run out of my change window while patching is still going on. Then I go about defining my patch baseline, which is the which component. Now this is interesting, right? This is where you can define what patches you want to accept or reject. This could be based on the criticality of the patch. You can say that always accept critical patches only. I don't care about minor and major. Or there is a specific patch that breaks your application, so you want to reject that particular patch. You can play around with what works for you. And then I'm going to go about and define or provide its email address. And this is where I want to receive notifications in terms of how my patching activity is processing. Then I go and scan my accounts, and I have found a set of instances that are development and comply with the policy that I have provided. I'm going to apply the EC2 tag patch group is equal to dev to them. Now take a pause and see how, by doing some simple steps, we have now mandated patching across a big chunk of my instances. Otherwise, the app owner had the option to not patch or patch when I want. This way you have mandated it. And similarly, you can go about creating more patch policies, assigning it to the via tags to your instances. So you can cover blue-green deployment patching, or you can have a policy saying that financial services is going to be patched on first Sunday after Patch Tuesday, while business systems are going to be patched on second Sunday after Patch Tuesday, offsetting from the Patch Tuesday date. You can do so many things that you would want here. And this is where you go around generalizing it as much as possible so that 80% of your fleet is covered here. Now, what happens to that 20%? Well, there'll always be instances that do not fall in the buckets that you have defined. What we are going to do now is we are going to park them in a default maintenance window cycle. And we'll talk about it as we move forward. So as we stand, we have defined a patch pattern. We have identified instances that comply to that patch pattern. The question is, how is the automation going to look like? So this is an agent-based solution. So it assumes that on your instances, you are having SSM agent installed. Now, AMS has an automation engine that accepts this patch plan. It reads the parameters from the patch plan into a CloudFormation template and spins a CloudFormation stack. And the CloudFormation stack orchestrates the creation of the SSM maintenance window. The SSM maintenance window has two key components. The first one is the target, where it has to identify the instances that can be patched as per the pattern that you have defined. And how does it do that? Well, the patch group is equal to dev tag would be present on that instance. And the second thing is the patch task itself, in the sense I have identified the instance, but what do I need to do on it? So the patch tasks have to be defined. And the third thing that it also does, the stack, is it goes and creates the SNS topic where you are going to receive notification based on the email address that you have provided. Once that is done, on the scheduled interval, the SSM maintenance window executes a set of tasks through an SSM document. Now, the whole patching is as such divided in three parts: the pre-patch, the actual patching activity, and the post-patching activities. So when it starts, the first thing it does, it sends you a notification or through the SNS topic that we have defined saying, hey, the patching has commenced. So you know that you are in the change window now. Don't go about changing anything on your workload. And then it goes and takes a backup of your instance using AWS Backup. Now, this works as a safety net, right? Because you have taken a backup of your instance just before patching. And anything that goes wrong in your patching, you can always go back to the snapshot that has been taken. So that's a rollback plan that you need to have. And then the system enters into the actual patching phase, which is it goes and reads your patch baseline that you have defined. It scans for available patches and installs those patches on your instance. What it also does is post-patching, if there are any errors in the system, it goes and fixes them. Also, if there are any health check warnings that would have come up, it gets addressed. After the patching has completed, it is going to send you an email notification with a summary saying, hey, this is how the patching went. These are the accounts. This is the instance. What is outstanding? Now, here you have a choice, right? Either you can log on to AWS Systems Manager and look at the compliance status of your instances, or you can get a data feed to ingest in the tool of your choice. And that's typically what most of our customers prefer to do. I'd like to show you more on the Ops dashboard part and talk about it. So what the Ops dashboard does is any instance that would have had errors during patching, they get flagged on the ops dashboard, and they are then picked up for remediation purposes by our engineers. Now, this ops dashboard is also used for us to quickly react to CloudWatch alarms that would have triggered for any other case outside of patching as well. And what it allows us to also do is, proactively solve issues before they become an incident. And we have customers like Sallie Mae who have reported 50% reduction in IT incidents since moving into cloud. And now, the question is, what happens to those 20% of the instance which did not, fall into the custom patching buckets that you have defined? What AMS does is, with every account, we onboard a default maintenance window. And through a Lambda, we check for instances which do not have any custom patch tags associated with them. And then we go and associate them with the default patching maintenance window, which executes similar to what you have done here, just that this is something that you have defined custom to a requirement, while the default one is a catch-all for anything that gets missed out. You see how by following this pattern, you have 80% coverage through standardization and 20% coverage through anything else that is left behind. Following such patching regimes, we have customer examples like National Australia Bank who have been able to achieve close to 100% patch compliance month on month. And this is where you want to leverage the capability of cloud to improve your patch compliance. So what I've shared with you, and looking at the automation engine, something that calls for attention is the CloudFormation template that is used. And what I thought was I'll share some of the snippets from it. So let's have a look on the snippets. The first one is showing you the creation of the target, which is by reading the patch group tag that we have defined as per the policy. And the second one is an example of the patch tasks that get executed on the instances, like run patch baseline, taking a snapshot of the root volume. And the third one is showing you the code rehagen preparation of the SNS topic. Now, this will give you an example of how you can go about constructing your CFN template if you're thinking on those lines. Similarly, this is just an example of how you can define your patch notification that is going to be going out. Now, based on what we have covered so far, and using the same thought process and using AWS Backup, what you can also do is go about defining your backup policies. Now, when you're talking about backup, there are two important things to keep in mind. That is, how often does the backup change for my resource? Because different resources like S3 could have a different data story, and it could be different from RDS. So how frequently the data in these objects change would help you define your backup policy. And the second thing would be, how much data are you ready to lose in case of an actual DR? And this is how you would be defining your RPO. Now, what I've shown you here as an example is a tiered approach. I've given you set as a gold, silver, bronze. You can go about planning it based on the criticality of the workload that you have, the amount of data that you want to capture, the retention period, the cold storage options that you want to present. And then you can use a similar tagged approach. In this case, I've shown you a tag of RPO, and you can assign that to your various resources. Now, what AMS also does is, apart from giving you a platform to define your backup policies, their monitoring, their execution, it also gives you a self-serve portal where you can log in and perform recovery exercises automatically. Now, this eliminates human intervention because it's all automated and allows you to have, better RTO when you are actually in a DR situation. We have customer examples where they have been able to achieve RTO of 1.5 hours compared to 24 hours that they were spending on premise. So this is huge. And this is where you want to explore the automation aspects of the various AWS tools to get to the outcome that you want. So with that, now it's time to have a look at a demo. I have my colleague James joining me here today. James, thank you, and over to you.
Thanks, Priyanka. Hello, I'm James, an engineer with AWS Managed Services, and I wanted to show you how we would patch using SSM maintenance windows. But before I do that, I wanted to underscore the importance of backing up your instances before engaging in any patch activity. AMS always uses automation to ensure your instances are backed up before patching, so you always have the option of rolling back to a pre-patch state. And now, let's take a look. When talking about patching, we're presented with three questions. What, when, and which. What instances, when we want them patched, and which patches to install. Here I have instances that I tagged with the patch group dev tag. Now, this logical grouping can be achieved using any tag. I chose this tag for simplicity, and this grouping will essentially be the target of our maintenance window. So now that we've talked about the what, let's talk about the when. Here I have a maintenance window already set up. I just wanted to highlight a few items in this maintenance window: the cron expression and the schedule offset. A common scenario is to target the first Saturday after Patch Tuesday for patching. Traditionally, that has always been difficult to achieve with a cron value, but we can do that now using the offset. I have this cron defined as Tuesday, the second Tuesday of the month, and I have this offset as 4 days. The next execution time is Saturday, and it will always be the first Saturday after Patch Tuesday, regardless if that Saturday is the second Saturday or the third Saturday of the month. Using both of these options in combination gives you the flexibility to create a maintenance window and never have to worry about missing critical patches because the time shifted from one Saturday to the next. The other item I wanted to highlight here was the task. As expected, the task we're using is AWS Run Patch Baseline. So we talked about the what and we talked about the when. The final thing we need to figure out is the which patches to install. I'm going to take a look at this baseline that I've set up already. So in this baseline, we see that it's targeting our patch group dev. The approval rule is defined such that it will target all versions of Amazon Linux. That's the star. The classification I selected is security, and the severity is critical and important, meaning that any security patch that's identified as critical or important will be installed by this baseline. I've set this baseline up to have a 0-day delay for auto approval, meaning that if the maintenance window executed today, all the patches available fulfilling those criteria available as of today would be installed on those instances. So in summary, we've talked about the what, we've talked about the when, we've talked about the which, and I actually have some patches going on in progress right now. Show you what that looks like. And in a few moments, we'll take a look at the results of our patching. Now that our patching is completed, let's take a look at one of the instances. As we can see, 61 updates were installed, and 0 updates are needed, and 0 updates were errored. This patch activity was successful, and this demonstrates how we can successfully patch our instances using tags to create logical groups, using maintenance windows to target those logical patch groups, and using baselines to select the patches we want to install on those instances. So we covered the what with tagging and creating logical groups. We covered the when with maintenance windows, and we covered the which with baselines. Now go forth and patch. Back to you, Priyanka.
Thank you, James. So what I have done is I have shared what we consider is service management a best practice with you. And you have 3 ways to look at implementing service management best practices for your organization. The first option is you can build the capability in-house yourself. The question to ask would be, do I have the skills in my team or do I have the experience in my team? Skills mean people have done training. Experience mean people have done it before. And these are two different things and will give you very different outcomes. So keep that in mind. The second option would be you can leverage third party to do it. Or the third option is you can buy best practice as a service from AWS Managed Services. Look, migrating to the cloud and considering cloud operations at the same time can be challenging because we have seen organizations, they lack the time, the tools, the resources to plan for both ongoing migration as well as cloud operations. And our customers have leaned on us to provide the cloud operations practice while they can focus on their transformation journey. And we are getting lots of positive feedback from our customers across all domains, from large enterprises, from banking sector, from health industry, about how compliance is very important to them. And as you know, the AWS products and services have the highest level of compliance in the industry. But what the AMS customers are enjoying the most is the fact that the service management layer is also compliant. And it's an enterprise-grade service that you get out of box. It comes with all prescriptive guided architecture, with all the guardrails, with things which are secured and compliant. And this is all baked into the landing zone. So the time to value is relatively different than if you had to do the whole thing from scratch yourself. And the other positive feedback that we are receiving from our customers is around the economics of AMS. AMS is typically less than half of what alternate cloud infrastructure methods cost. And customers are experiencing about 25% savings through the various cost optimization options and activities that we run into your account. And this is huge for us because if you look at the screen, today we spoke about patching. We plugged out one component from the big picture of infrastructure operation capabilities that AMS offers. And when we work with our customers in their transformation journey, they often look towards AWS in terms of what is that IP and experience that we can leverage in this journey that we are into. And AWS looks at it as a team of capabilities that are working together so that you can focus on the change that you're trying to drive in your business. For example, AWS Professional Services helps you with your transformation strategy, the innovation solutions. Similarly, we have AWS Training and Certification that helps you recalibrate your workforce so that you're ready for cloud. Similarly, look at AMS as a capability that you can plug into your organization's cloud center of excellence. Use it as much as you need it or as little as you need it. It's very flexible. Some organizations are using us as their default operating model, while there are organizations who have carved out a portion of their business for AMS. It all depends what works for your business, what landscape you are in, what kind of skills and experience you have, and what are those business outcomes that you're actually trying to drive from being in cloud. And again, we have a partner network who add that value layer on top of what AMS does by allowing us to serve a bigger customer base by providing them with SAP basis support and local language support. To wrap it all up, AMS helps you bridge the skills gap so you can innovate at pace, stay relevant, and capitalize on market opportunities that you have got. Today, I hope you're taking away some of the learnings on how you can patternize service management functions. Please visit our website to learn more about AWS Managed Services and to download the Forrester Total Economic Impact Study. You'll always also be able to download the CFN template that we have shown here from the additional information section of the session. Thanks for watching.